Hello everybody and welcome to video 4 in this series. Now before we dive in, I'm just going to spend a minute or two addressing some of the comments I got on the previous video and just reassuring you about some of the things that are going on in this series because a lot of you seem to be slightly concerned, and I want to make sure that you're reassured before we move forward. So first of all, the main comment I was getting is a lot of people were saying, hey, you should be using functional based components and not class based components. Now I'm going to give an apology right now because I am not a React master. And in fact, I probably should have stated that in the third video when we were setting up React, but I am absolutely not a pro. I'm not a master. I am learning just like you guys. And in fact, that's why I make a lot of these tutorial series, because I'm able to learn along with you and share what I've learned and kind of touch on the main pain points that I had when learning the framework, which seemed to help you guys out. So I was not aware that functional components were just extremely superior to class-based components, and hence this series does use class-based components. Now, the main reason behind that is when I worked at Microsoft, the entire code base that I used class-based components. So that is what I was comfortable with. That's what I knew about React. I knew functional components were a thing, but I did not realize that now there's been kind of a shift, and these are just the superior and better way to go. So this will be using class-based components, and some of you may be disappointed by that, but I will state that it is very easy to translate these into functional-based components. And I will make an effort to make a video near the end of the series that goes through and translates some of these components that really don't need to be class-based components into functional components so you can understand how that works. That being said, class-based components are not going to be removed from React. They're still an important part of the framework, and learning them is still valuable. So I don't think that that's going to be a huge hindrance to this tutorial, and you're still going to learn a ton about web development, React, and Django, regardless if I'm using class or functional components. Now, another thing people were saying is, hey, you're making this really complicated. Now, I agree, I'm making it complicated. The reason why I spent as much time in the last video as I did is because I want to make sure you guys understand what is going on and you're able to deal with problems if they occur. I cannot tell you guys how many times I've simply just typed in a command, had everything done for me, and then something goes wrong, and it takes me hours or even days to figure out what the heck is going on because I actually don't understand the setup at all. I just had some magical command do it for me. So that was my motivation behind actually doing the manual setup with you guys, and I hope that you can appreciate that and understand why we went through all of that kind of pain, because that is going to save you a lot of time in the future if you ever need to modify the setup or you're wondering why something is not working. So I do apologize for this long introduction, but it's very important to me that I shared that information with you guys. I do really care about the quality of this series, and I do have to apologize because I really should have done that research before starting to film these videos. That being said, this project is really about just getting hands-on and actually creating something. Not everything is going to be done to the industry standard, and I wouldn't expect it to be, especially if you guys are just working on some kind of hobby project or trying to get up and running and build a simple React application. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoy. If you do notice any mistakes, of course, leave them down below, and I will try my best to address those comments. I'm going to keep saying it, but if you are here, give yourself a pat on the back. Now things are just starting to get good. We're going to be writing a lot of code in these next videos, and I guarantee you are going to learn a ton, especially if you don't already know the React and Django frameworks. So in this video, what we're going to be focusing on is adding a few little bits of styling to our app. We're also going to be making another component, and then we'll be working with the React router to actually handle page routing, and I'll show you kind of how that works. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to do is add some styling to our app. So if you look at index.html, you might have noticed that I already loaded in a style sheet called index.css from the static/css folder. Now, if you look inside of that folder here, notice that we don't actually have an index.css file. So the first thing we're going to do is create one. We're going to say index.css and put that inside of static CSS. All right, so now we have index.css, and I'm just going to add a few basic styles that are going to expand our divs, and we can look inside of index.html here, so the main div and the app div to take up the entire screen and have kind of the correct layouts. I'm not focusing heavily on styling in this tutorial series, so I'll kind of briefly go through what it is that I'm doing, and you're welcome to kind of look up this syntax if you don't know what it does. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the height equal to 100% for the body and the HTML tag. Then I'm going to say the margin is equal to 0, or sorry, this needs to be a semicolon there. And the padding is equal to 0. And I'm going to change the default color of the text to be white. That is because we are going to add that cool gradient background that changes colors and the white text just looks better on it. But now that I think about that, we're not going to add that in this video. So I might just, can I do a comment in CSS? I don't know how to do that. I'm just going to remove the color tag like that. So we will add that later, but if you want to change the text color, that's how you could do it. Next, I'm going to apply some styles to my main div, and I'm also going to apply some styles to my app div. So the main div is wrapping the app div, and the app div is where our React code is actually going to be rendered. So here we'll go inside of main, and the first thing I'm going to do is make the position fixed so that it's not moving around. I'm going to say the width equals 100% and the height equals 100%. We're going to position this at left 0 and top 0, which pretty much means take this main div and just throw it at the top left-hand corner of our screen and then make its width and height fill the entire screen. And since the position is fixed, this will mean that we're not going to have any scroll wheels or scroll bars on our page because we don't need them for this app. So now we're going to go inside of app. We're going to do a very similar thing. We're going to make the width 100%. We're going to make the height, you guessed it, 100%. And we're going to make the display actually be a flex display. This is just because some of the components we're going to be using work in kind of the flex grid or whatever it is for CSS. So we just need to apply this to the app. If you don't add this, you'll notice that a bunch of styles and stuff we do later on will be kind of all messed up, but you're welcome to try that and see what does happen if you avoid adding that. So now if you want to add any other unique styles to your app, feel free to add them right inside of index.css because this style sheet is already loaded from our HTML document. And now we're going to head over to the app.js file and just take a quick pause so I can once again thank the sponsor of this video and this series, which is AlgoExpert. AlgoExpert is a coding interview prep platform that has 100 unique coding interview questions and is constantly being updated with new features and new questions. AlgoExpert now has a brand new mock interview feature on its platform, which is arguably one of the best ways to get real-world coding interview practice. Check it out from the link in the description and use the code TechWithTim for a discount on the platform. So now that we're inside of app.js, I'm going to explain what this basic React code actually does and how React kind of works, and then we'll build another component and we'll talk about React page routing using that thing called the React router. So right here, we have a component. Now, the way that React works is we have a bunch of components and components can render other components. So the entry point to our application is going to be our first component, which we usually called app. And notice that what we did is we simply rendered this component inside of the app div to our index.html template file. So essentially what this is doing is taking this component right here and just placing it inside of that div, and this component has some logic behind it, and it has this method called render, which will return the actual HTML that should be displayed on the page. Now, this is really useful to have these kind of components because what this means is I can make my own custom components and I can reuse them. So let's say I make a component for something like an image, or I make something for like a responsive button. Well, all I have to do is write out the components tag that looks something like this. It's simply the name of the component and then inside of a standard HTML tag, and I can reuse that component and render it as many times as I want on the screen. What I can also do is pass what's known as props to the component. So if we have a look here, what a prop is simply an attribute or simply an argument that we give to the component. It will internalize that and then it will use that in some way to modify the behavior of the component. So if I go ahead and do something like app and then I pass a prop and I say name equals, let's just go ahead and make that a string of Tim. Now what I can do inside of my render method is I can change this testing React code to actually be equal to this dot props dot, and you guessed it, name. So now what will happen is I will actually render the string Tim or whatever was passed as the name prop to this app component. So it doesn't make much sense to do this for a component that we're only using one time, but if we were making, say, a button, then maybe some props we would want to pass it with something like the color, something like the text on the button, maybe like the shadow color, whatever. You could get the idea. We can pass properties to the components and then it can use those properties to modify its behavior. Now you may be asking me, why did we add these little squiggly brackets here? Well, whenever we want to actually write JavaScript code inside of our render function, what we do is we simply put it inside of these little squiggly brackets, at least, when we're in the return statement. What this allows us to do is actually embed JavaScript code into our HTML text. So it's really useful because I can write, say, an if statement inside of this return statement, and all I have to do is just wrap it using these squiggly brackets, and all is good, and it will just take and evaluate whatever this is and put that into HTML code. Now, of course, I can write like a standard if statement up here without those brackets, but as soon as I get into the return statement and I'm inside of some already written HTML codes like these h1 tags, that's where I use these squiggly brackets, and this will make more sense as we go on. But now let's actually try this out. I do have to rerun my server because I did close this before I re-recorded this video, but let's go cd music controller, and then let's go python manage.py run server. See if that's all good. Okay, and now let's make another terminal here. Let's cd into music controller. Let's cd into front end, and then let's go npm run dev like that. Give it a second to run here. Okay, compilation started. Now I need to open up a browser window. Let's open up a new one here. And let's go to 127.0.0.1, and notice Tim is showing up on the screen. So now if I go ahead and change this name and I say, oh, we're going to show Bob on the screen instead, and we have a refresh here, Bob shows up. So that is how we pass props through to our components. And there's one more thing that we can talk about, which is called state. Now, I don't really want to get too much into the state because that's probably for a later video, but there is this thing called a state that we can store on our components. So we can say something like this.state equals, and then inside of here, we can define all of the stateful aspects, I guess, that we want to store. And whenever the state of our component is modified, it will automatically re-render the entire component. Now, this is really cool because say the database updates and all of a sudden the state of our web page has to change. All we have to do is modify the state of our component and it will automatically re-render just that component. So we don't have to re-render the entire page. It's just going to be that component that will update. And that's really cool. And that's what makes React really powerful and useful. And we'll look at states later on. But anyways, now that we've done this, I want to get into the actual React routing. So I'm going to get rid of this prop. We'll just go back to what we had before and just say test website or something. And let's make another component now and then render that component from this main app component. So I'm going to make a new file. I'm going to call this one homepage.js. And as you guessed, this is going to store the home page for our application. So just like from before, we're going to say import React, component from, and that should be React. We don't need that render anymore. So let's actually go back to app.js because we already rendered this app component. And what we're going to do is render the homepage component from the app component. So let's just make this default class structure though. So let's go to homepage and let's say, okay, export default class. Let's call this the same thing as our file name. That's standard convention. And then we're going to say extends component like that. We need to make sure we add our constructor. So we're going to say constructor like that. We're going to say props. And then inside of our constructor, we always need to call the parent constructor. So we're going to say super props. That will call the constructor of component, which is necessary. We could do something else inside of the constructor if we want, but for right now, we'll leave that blank. And then we'll say render inside of here, and we'll simply return whatever HTML it is that we want to render. So again, just to kind of give us an example here, let's just render a paragraph tag and another paragraph tag. And let's say this is the home page like that. So that is our component. I don't think I messed anything up there. Let's now go to app.js. Let's import this component. So I'm going to say import homepage from, and then we can guess it's going to be /homepage like that. And now we'll be able to use this homepage component from right inside of this app. So now instead of rendering this h1 tag, I'm going to render the homepage component like that. Now I can render it like this, where we have two tags, an opening tag and a closing tag, but I also can just add the slash like that, which is typically the convention. And now if I wanted to, I can add any props that I want to pass to my home page. Now I could also pass props that were passed to this app over to the home page, right? That's something that we could do. We can pass all kinds of crazy stuff. And well, I just wanted to make that clear that we can pass things through to the component, although I did already mention that. So now we have a home page, and just to kind of illustrate the React routing aspect, let's make two more pages here. So let's make a room join page. So remember, in our app, we're going to have a page to join a room, and we're going to have a page to create a room. So let's say room join page.js, and let's literally just go to home page, copy this exact same thing, and we'll just change the component name to be room join page. And then instead of this is the home page, this is the room join page. Maybe we could say join room page. Maybe that makes more sense. Name it whatever you like. And then copy this again. Let's make another component and let's call this one create room page.js. Same thing here. Let's rename this to create room page. And then instead of this is the room join page, this is the create room page. All right, so now we have 3 components. Let's go back to app.js and import all of those. So let's say import room join page from, and then same thing, / room join page. And then let's import create room page from / create room page. Okay, so now I want to show you how we can actually render all of these. So let's do just a bracket here for our return statement. And now let's just render all of these different components inside of a div. So let's create a div. Let's bring that down. Oops, I wanted to delete that. And now we will render the other 2 components. So room join page. Nope, let's end the tag like that. And create, if I open the tag, create room page like that. So now technically we should be rendering all 3 of these components. I'll have a look at my web browser in a second, but notice that the reason I put them inside of a div is simply because when we return something, there needs to be like an exterior wrapper for everything that we're returning. If I just try to return this here, you notice that we're getting an error. It's giving us this red squiggly line. And essentially it's saying we must have one parent element. So there has to be one element that we return to start so we can return this div that then contains all of these inside of it. That's why I added the div. But anyways, let's go look at the web browser now. Let's refresh and we get, this is the home page, this is the room join page, and this is the create room page. So that is the basics on how these components work. And I obviously could reuse them as many times as I want. So now if I go look at my web browser and I refresh, we get the create room page 3 times. But this is no good. I don't want to render all of these on the same page. I want to have URLs that direct me to each of them. So this is where we get into the React router aspect, which I think is kind of cool. So we're going to do that now from our home page. So let's go over to our home page. Where is the home page? First of all, let's delete room join page and create join page. We don't need that from here. And let's go to the home page. And let's actually import those 2 things. So we'll import room join page and create room page, because from here, we're going to kind of do the routing system where we go to the different pages. So first I'm going to import a few things that we need from React router. So I'm going to say import, and then inside of these curly brackets like this, I'm going to import browser router as router. What this means is we'll import the browser router, but we'll just name it router so it's easier for us to use. We'll also import switch. We'll import route, we'll import link, and we'll import redirect. We're not going to use all of these right now, but we will use them later. And then that's going to be from React router -dom, like that. So now we have all of the things that we need to use. And notice when I saved, it automatically formatted this for us for our actual routing system. So now inside of the render, what I'm going to do is instead of returning a simple p tag that says this is the home page, we are going to return a router that will redirect us to the correct page. So let's go ahead and say router like that. In this case, we actually do want a closing tag because we're going to put a bunch of stuff inside of this. And we actually do need the brackets here for the return statement as well, just to make sure that's all good. And inside of router, the first thing we're going to add is a switch. And what this switch will allow us to do is pretty much switch on the path name. So if you've ever used a switch statement before in something like JavaScript, then you know what we can do is look at one variable. In this case, this is going to be the URL or the path name that we're passing to this router. And based on what that value is, we can return something different. So inside of here, we need to make a bunch of roots. You can think of these as like the cases of a switch statement. And we simply say root, we define the path, and we say, okay, whatever is typed into the URL bar that matches this path, if it matches this path, we'll return whatever we define inside of this root. So we have our root, and then what we have to do inside of the root is we have to say the component is equal to, and whatever component we want to render if this root is true. So if we go to say slash. Now in this case, we don't have a specific component that we want to render if we go to the home page, right? Which is just a simple slash. So what we can do instead is actually just give it some HTML that we want to show. So I can simply end the root by doing slash root like that. And now inside of here, I can add some really basic HTML, like say that p tag, and say this is the home page. So now if we go to the page slash, we'll render this is the home page. So let's copy this route down. Actually, let's rewrite it because we're going to change this one a little bit. And let's make another route now. And let's make this path not equal to the home page, but let's make this equal to the join page, so the room join page. So when we go to the path join, the component that we want to render is what? Well, we want to render the room join page. So all we do is we type room join page like that. We put it inside of our little squiggly brackets. Actually, do I need to put inside the squiggly brackets? Yeah, I think I do. And that will simply render the room join page if we go to /join in the URL bar. Again, I can simplify this by just adding the slash there, and we'll do the same thing now, except we'll do one for the create room page. So instead of /join, we'll say create, and then the component will be the create room page. The reason I'm putting them in the squiggly brackets is because this is actual JavaScript code, right? We're getting it from up here. And whenever we do that inside of our return statement, we need to put it inside of squiggly brackets. Okay, so now we have 3 routes. This is all we need to do to actually have the React router working. And now let's go to our web page here. Let's refresh and notice that we get the home page. Now I just want to show you what happens if we try to go to the join page. If we go there, we get this weird thing that says, hey, the current path join did not match any of these paths. But that's strange. We have /join right here inside of our React router. Well, the reason this isn't working is because if we go look at the URLs in our front end, we only have one URL, which goes to the home page. What we need to do is actually tell Django that, hey, when we hit a URL, it's equal to /join or equal to /whatever else, we want to render the index.html template that then React will take over and show the right page. So whenever we create a path or a URL, we have to add it to both Django and both React. There's a way to avoid having to do this, but for simplicity's sake, we're just going to add it. So I'm going to say inside of here, path. Now I'm going to add join, and I don't need the slash. I can just say join. And again, we're going to render index when we go to join. So now let's go back to our web page. Let's refresh and notice that when we render join, we're getting this is the home page. That's strange. We shouldn't be getting this is the home page. It should render something else. I'll look into that in just 1 second, but now join is working. So just notice that. But if I go to create, and my history is here from what I was doing before, but if I do create, again, we get page not found. So what do we have to do? Well, we have to add the path here for create. So now we'll say create, and when we do create, we'll render index. So let's go and have a look now at the app. So app is rendering homepage, and homepage has this route, but for some reason, it wasn't rendering this /join or /create page when we went to this path. So let me just have a look here and see what's going wrong, and I will be right back. All right, so I found the issue, and this is something that is a little bit confusing, but hopefully it will make sense to us. We have to add this thing called exact right here to this route. The reason for this is since we're checking this route first, technically /join and /create match this path of just nothing. I'm pretty sure that what this is saying, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I'm pretty certain, is if we see a path that looks like this, so at least has the slash, then go to this page. So /join and /create technically match this path because even though they have join and create, they have this default slash. So we need to put exact, which says, hey, this path must match exactly, and only in that situation will we go to this page. And in fact, to test that hypothesis, let's save that. Let's go here and let's refresh and notice that this is the create room page is working when we go to create, and /join is working when we go to join. Now what happens if I go to join /3? Well, this didn't work because we didn't match the URL pattern, but I'm willing to bet that if we add that URL into our URLs configuration, so let's actually go to URLs and do this, that it will bring us to that page. So let's go here, let's just add another URL, and let's say path, join, and let's just do join /1, and in this situation, let's render index. Now I'm not going to add inside of my home page a path to join /1, and I want to see if we go to join /1, it gives us the room join page. Again, I'm not sure if that's true, but that's why we're going to test it out. So let's go to join /1, refresh. I think I might have messed up my web server here. Let's go look at the web server. Missing one required positional argument, so I must have messed something up in URLs. Looks like if I go to URLs, That should be good. Let's just save that and see. Okay, looks like I just had to save the file. My bad on that. Let's go back to the web browser. Okay, so I had some weird cache issue, whatever. Anyways, we're back, but let's go to /join/1 and notice that that path does indeed bring us to this is the room join page. So that's something interesting to note, that the path, if you don't add that exact keyword here, doesn't have to match exactly. It just has to match, right? It just has to at least have what is there. So that is how we do React page routing. We add some styles here. We learned a bit about React and created some different components. That is going to be it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.